Hello, everyone, to wherever you are tuning in from, whether it be here on YouTube if you're watching visually, or on the Best Damn Camp, my Percy Jackson, and so on and so forth podcast. If you are on YouTube, of course, you are ahead of everyone right now because you can see that I am not alone for this episode. I have a fantabulous guest in the form of author and just mythology and fantasy extraordinaire, Laurie M. Lee, and it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. It's, oh my God, well, show, it's channel, pod, whatever it is that I do. It's amazing to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to speak with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, of course. Honestly, your work in your fantasies, and especially your upcoming book with the Rick Riordan Presents imprint, I'm just fascinated by the whole thing, and I'm so excited to, I've pre-ordered already. I'm raring to
Thank
go.
you.
And hopefully when everyone has tuned into this, they'll be pre-ordering as well, to hopefully build up the hype so the book does really, really well. But just to kind of dive on into this discussion here relating to you and your work. Obviously, you've written for various different ages and in different formats, including novels and short stories. What would you kind of say is the most interesting part of writing for these different ages and forms? And what about them would you say is probably the hardest part with all of them?
I think the most interesting part, or at least the part that I enjoy the most, is being able to reach a wider audience with my work.
Mm.
Um, I just want to be able to successfully write across all age categories because I'm the kind of person who just wants to try all the things to see what I do best. I don't want to limit myself to just one or two.
Mm.
And it's the most rewarding thing to get letters or emails from both young readers and adults about how much they enjoy my stories. So I fully intend to keep writing, as many age categories as I can, as long as they'll let me. And then I would say, the most difficult age category that I've tried to write for so far would be middle grade, which would be like the Pahua and the Soulstealer, which is coming out. I think my writing more naturally skews toward the YA
Mm.
voice, and I never thought I'd find the right voice for middle grade. Voice is one of those writing tools that it's really hard to teach because it's the character's unique worldview, like their tone and their word choices and perceptions.
Mm.
And while I love reading middle grade, I didn't think I had the voice for it. Uh, Plus, it felt especially daunting to write for this age group,
Mm.
because it's such a formative part of their lives when
Mm.
they're thinking about who they are and where they fit in the world. And I don't know, it's humbling and scary to think about your book having any sort of role in that. Also, children are very open-minded in general, but they're also more honest. So they're gonna let you know if you got it wrong.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I suppose that's kind of like the most seemingly terrifying bit is like kids will tell you whether or not
Yeah.
they don't like something or they do. It's something I both appreciate in the, oh God, I feel old saying it, in the quote unquote youth, but also it's just like I'm very, very sensitive. Like I don't know how it would be for being an author for middle grade as well. Just like just hearing the feedback. Hopefully they're lovely most of the time, but
Yeah, no, I feel like most kids are just absolutely wonderful. And like, even when they say they don't like something, they're not doing it in any sort of malicious way. That's what's like so lovely about them. They're just
mm.
saying how they feel and how they think.
Yeah, so they're basically they're not Goodreads. Goodreads is like
Right.
the opposing side, like the evil side of things. So they're the nicer side of it. That's what Goodreads should be, is these kids.
Yes, I avoid Goodreads like the plague.
Oh, good decision. I've made that mistake many times, but oh well. But in regards to your middle grade as well, obviously having joined Rick Riordan Presents imprint family, as it's being referred to, with your upcoming Southeast Asian mythology story, Pahua and the Soulstealer, which by the way, seen the cover recently in like the in the format with the arc as well. Oh my god, it's so pretty. Like if
Yeah,
just the cover alone, I'm just like,
I love
just buy
it.
it for the
Yeah.
cover alone, and the story is just the extra bonus. Um, but for that story, how did this sort of opportunity come about, and what has it been like working with the imprint?
So, like a lot of people, I heard about Rick Riordan Presents when it was first announced with Arusha as their first book, which is amazing. I love the whole series. And I thought, like, when I saw it, I was like, wow, like, I would love to write for this. That would be, like, ideal. But I'd never written in middle grade, and I didn't know how. So I sort of just pushed that idea to the back of my mind and kept working on my YA, because I was just like, I would love to write for it, but until, you know, I like feel more confident in being able to even like write a middle grade, I was just gonna stick to my YA. But then I was reading and loving the books in the imprint that the imprint were putting out. And in 2018, I was just seized by this idea of a young girl journeying into the spirit realm to save the souls of stolen children, which is actually a very familiar idea in Hmong shamanism. And it made so much sense to me as a middle grade story. So I knew I had to write that. But again, I'd never written a middle grade. So I researched, you know, how to do so. And I also began researching Hmong mythology and folklore. There's actually very few books devoted solely to Hmong folklore, because all of our stories have been passed down orally. And the Hmong didn't even have a written language until like maybe 50 or so years ago. And that's only when, you know, our stories and our history began being put down into paper. So there's really not that much out there. But I gathered what I could, you know, and I listened to my mom's stories and my brother's stories and like all the stories that I was told growing up. And in 2019, I wrote the whole book, which I think was actually the fastest I've ever written a book. And I had so much fun writing the book. But I polished up the first 100 pages and sent that to my agents just to get her opinion on, you know, how it's going, because again, I'd never written a middle grade. And then I told her, you know, I was just like, I'm just gonna go for it. I told her that Rick Riordan Presents would be my dream imprint for this book. And she came back with, oh, great, we'll put together a proposal. And then I just about died. I was just like, oh my God. Yeah. So it just seemed like an impossibility at that time. But Stephanie Laurie, who is the editorial director for the imprint at Disney, she ended up loving the pages. And luckily the acquisitions team loved the pages. And then I was on my phone with my agent right before Thanksgiving in 2019. We were talking about a bunch of things, but that's when she told me, you know, that Rick Riordan Presents had offered on the book. And I hung up with her and I burst into tears.
Oh.
It was like probably, I was just very overwhelmed, and it was only one of 2 times I've ever cried about something writing related, and I've been in publishing for like a decade. So that's,
Wow.
yeah, that's how that happened. Working with them has been genuinely wonderful. Like, I wasn't sure what to expect, but it's been really, really positive. They care so much about getting it right in terms of like how I want to present my culture and the folklore. They wanted a Hmong artist for the cover, which was great. And they've been just so incredibly understanding about how everyone is just a little bit wrung dry with like the pandemic and working from home, with having kids in the house nonstop with virtual schooling. So I feel extremely fortunate about that. And also it was surreal getting Rick's notes on my book and reading his foreword, which made me grin like the entire time I was reading it. I'm really excited for other people to read it.
Wow. Oh my gosh, it sounds like such a journey. That's amazing. Oh my God, I'm not even involved in the situation now. I'm kind of speechless. But that's incredible as well, just especially hearing the side that they want to make sure things are done right for the cultures as well, because that's extremely important to make sure that everything works and is important and represents the culture as best it can, because obviously nothing is the monolith sort of situation as well. But the fact that they were getting a cover artist who is Hmong as well is, I hope I said that right, by the way. Apologies. Okay. Sorry. But the fact that they did that as well is amazing. And I didn't know that before, but I now do. And oh my gosh, now I love the cover even more. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, they care a lot, and it shows.
Oh, definitely. And I'm glad that they showed that level of care for Pahua as well. That's brilliant. And I'm really glad to hear that your experience as well has been really, really good within the imprint. I'm sure other people who are listening or watching are really glad to hear that as well. And I'm definitely more excited, like that the anticipation is growing for Stephen.
So.
In my head, I'm just like, I want to read the book, but I'm also now intrigued about this oh god, I've lost the word. The thing at the front with what Rick
Forward?
says. Forward, that's it. Oh my gosh.
No,
I have words like fall out of my head so
that
often.
happens to me all the time.
Yes, the forward as well. Oh my gosh, that's going to be amazing. Oh, can I convince like Amazon or someone to like release it early just so I can read this book?
I mean, Amazon does sometimes have that, look inside feature. They might put it up. Okay. I haven't checked.
Note to self, check after this to see if that's a thing. All right, cool. Sorry, total aside there from me of my own excitement for this story. But in regards to both of the series that you're working obviously with Pahua and the Shaman Born series, which obviously I showed earlier, also got a copy of your work, and guys, it's amazing. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
And pre-order the sequel as well. That's coming out. I know you
June
said
15th.
June. There we go. Heard it here. Go pre-order or buy now whenever this comes. Buy it, basically. But for both the Shaman Born and Pua book, and the fact that they discuss and explore characters of magic and Hmong shamanism, what kind of in particular, I know you touched on it briefly with your history and your family, but what in particular about it inspired you to delve into these elements of the magic, and what would you like to explore about the culture in future in your work?
So actually, Forest of Souls is the first book where I gave myself permission to even include parts of my cultural heritage, just in elements like names, food, the social hierarchy, and the magical system being inspired by Hmong shamanism. Like before that, part of why I didn't include Hmong elements was because, like, first I just didn't think I could. I figured no one would want to read it because publishing was and generally is overwhelmingly white. The fantasy books I grew up reading and falling in love with, they never featured Asian characters, or if they did, they were the stranger from a distant land, someone who was clearly other, right? So as a kid, I internalized this, really damaging idea that people who looked like me just weren't welcome in fantasy books. So I never wrote them. It actually took a really long time for me to dismantle that in my head, and then even longer for me to allow myself to write parts of myself, put parts of myself onto the page. And then the second reason was because I was just afraid of getting it wrong. I was afraid of the judgment I would get from our own community, but also because we have so little representation in mainstream media. Like the Hmong are very small. They're like a subculture subculture. I don't know if that's the right word. Subculture of they're a minority of a minority. So very few people even know who the Hmong are. And so we have so little representation that it felt like an enormous responsibility. But I had to let go of that as well, because I hated the double standard of how most white authors, aren't judged for pulling inspiration from random Western cultures and meshing it into their own fantasy world. So why can't I? I'm writing fantasy. I'm not writing nonfiction. I should be allowed to play with my culture stories and upend things and turn things around. And so that's what I did. And I had so much fun creating my version of the spirit realm in Pahua and the Soulstealer, and incorporating the folk tales that I grew up hearing about into her world. And that was just a lot of fun. And I hope other people agree. And then I hope I get to explore more facets of those types of stories and the folk tales for future books. And I mean, I'm not planning to write only books inspired by Hmong mythology. I also don't want to put myself in that box. I want to be able to write anything I want, essentially.
That's great to hear, and I would definitely be interested in basically anything that you're writing in future. It's just like already on my pre-order list, basically. Even though they don't have a pre-order, in my mind they're already on pre-order. So, but it's incredible to hear, and what you say about fantasy as well. The fact that it is so predominantly white is, well, that's publishing. Really, that publishing as a whole is very white. It's disappointing. It's like snail pace like change at the moment of it, but
yeah, like the reality of it is that Pahua and the Soulstealer, I just don't think it would have been able to sell even like a decade ago. Like it sounds like a long time, but I've been in publishing for a decade. Like that's when I first got my agent and when my debut novel was sold. But like, 10 years ago, I don't think anyone would have been interested in this book. So it's a testament, I guess, to how far publishing has come, which is really amazing, but we still have a long way to go.
Exactly, very much so. And hopefully in the next decade on, things will change even further, and we won't have this idea of just like this side of fantasy. It's just white Western images within fantasy. Oh God, either this is going to be a really nice thing to look back on in 10 years, or I'm going to be like, oh man, we were so wrong, and hopefully we aren't. But publishing, get your act together, please. I'm begging you so much. But I feel like I always end up ranting about how publishing needs to get ahead of itself. But hopefully it sorts itself out, and I will get back on topic now. So as you can tell, I'm a tangent kind of person.
That's okay. Yeah.
But in terms of the Riordan Presents work and Pahua and the Soulstealer in particular, what are sort of the top or main things from the story that you want and feel the readers should get out of the story itself? Sort of like, what is the message that you want people to take from it?
I think first and foremost, I wrote a story to entertain. Like I didn't necessarily set out to deliver a message. As a kid, like when I read books, they were escapism. They were, I read them to entertain myself, I read them to escape from, whatever was happening in real life. And so I first and foremost just hope that it can be that for other readers, like just like that they can immerse themselves in it and escape for a little bit in it and enjoy their time there with Pahua. And then second, I hope it's sort of just like a intro, I guess, to Hmong mythology. If I'm lucky, if I'm very fortunate, the word Hmong might not be so like confusing when other people hear it now. Because like I said, the Hmong just get absolutely almost no representation in mainstream media, and it would be a very, very cool thing to for people to not be so surprised when they hear that I'm Hmong anymore. Like I'm used to it. I've heard all my life, oh, what's Hmong, like, or like, what is that? So I'm used to it. And I don't mind explaining it at all. Because again, even other Asians have not heard of Hmong. It's not like exclusive to non-Asians. But it would just be very cool, if that became more mainstream. And then third, I guess, Pahua's story, it's just I wrote it partly, for like my 11-year-old self who never saw myself in those fantasy stories and who thought that I couldn't be the heroes in these types of stories. So, for just any kids who are feeling like they're just too strange to fit in, they don't look like everybody else, they don't fit it, or they just feel like they don't belong, I just want them to be able to read Poe's story and just know that anyone can be the hero of an epic if they like regardless of how they look or how they talk or where they came from.
That's amazing, and I really hope people do take that, but when they've got the book and that they've read it and that's the sort of thing that they get from it, I think it's important, especially for the author, for you as the author as well, for people to obviously enjoy your work. That's like the main thing, like you said, that you want to be able to entertain and be this sort of escape for readers as well. But especially in terms of for what Rick Riordan Presents imprint represents itself of
Right.
being able to give this voice to mythologies and cultures that unfortunately publishing in like quote unquote mainstream media don't see as significant enough to have this, that more people who are of that background and more people just getting to experience it, I think is definitely important. I really, really do hope that for you yourself as well, that people do have that experience and they can share their stories with you and they can share Pahua and Soulstealer to others as well, so more people are introduced to it. And I hope it has the impact that you want it to have and that people do enjoy the story. Basically, this is to YouTube. For any booktubers out there, do reviews of Pahua and the Soulstealer. Let everyone know. Get the big platform. Maybe my platform's not that big, but maybe I can do it. I'm not the best at giving reviews, but I will do it. I want more people to read Pahua and the Soulstealer when it comes out. And I hope that even with this interview here with me, that more people will pre-order or buy and read Pahua's story and see the messages in the story that you wanted them to see.
Thank you.
All right, fabulous. For the kind of final sort of summary question in for all of this, on your website, and yes, I'm just a teeny tiny little bit stalked your website a little bit, fascinated. If FBI, if you're listening, not in a criminal way, I swear. But you have a fantastic number of resources for writers, from things relating to world building to crafting villains and all these sort of incredible things, which I may or may not have used all of them in some way. What piece of advice in regards to that would you offer to an aspiring writer in any form?
I think it would be to not be afraid to fail. I feel like when I'm writing something, and I think one of my for myself personally, one of the biggest like roadblocks to like getting words on the page is like just worrying that I'm going to get it wrong, worrying that no one's going to want to read this, so that it's it's junk, it's whatever. So you just have to give yourself that permission to fail. You have to write a terrible first draft, because they're going to be terrible. That's what first drafts are. And to write clunky dialogue and thin descriptors, and it's okay if you run into a plot hole. You only learn in the doing, and literally nothing can teach you how to be a better writer than to write, and to write a lot. And then allow yourself to make those mistakes and then to learn from them, because you can study as many craft books as you can. You can have piles of craft books. You can read, as much. You can like give yourself as many tools as you can, but you only learn how to use them by actually writing and like failing and learning. So yeah.
All right, fabulous. I love that. And yeah, as someone who's working on a first draft at the moment, it is so bad, but now I feel better knowing that it's bad, because it should be.
It's supposed to be bad. Yeah.
All right, future Fran, feel more confident. Believe in the first draft, no matter how bad it is.
Just get those words out.
Yes. Sprinting time, I feel, is what's going to come after this now. All the writing sprints. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for coming on to speak with me. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm more excited than ever to read Pahua and the Soulstealer. And should I pre-order a second copy? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I will. I don't know. I don't technically need 2 copies, but now I kind of want to get 2 copies.
Do a good thing for a friend.
Exactly. Yeah, I can justify that. My wallet won't be able to, but no, I can justify it. It's fine. All right, so I'm going to do that immediately after this. And I've got the pre-order for Broken Web for anyone who has read Forest of the Souls, the first of the series. All these links for pre-orders and for Forest of the Souls itself will be in the description box or episode show notes if you're listening on the podcast. Buy all the things, or if you're young, ask your parents to buy you all the things.
Also request it at the library. That's also awesome.
Oh, library, yes, as well. That's a good. I should probably not be telling children to ask their parents. To any parents listening, I'm really sorry. Libraries are good. Take the library. Oh god, if I've started an argument between a parent and child, I'm gonna feel so bad.
I feel like most parents would love for their kids to ask for books. That's how I feel. I have 2 kids, and like if they want a book, I'm like, yes, I will give you a book. Absolutely.
Okay, I'll take that instead of worrying about starting an argument. Now I can be like, yes, reading. Yeah.
Literacy, yes.
Literacy. It's like that whole what was it, the TV show Arthur's like, having fun isn't hard when you've got a library card. So get a library card, kids. It's the best thing you can do.
I have to agree. Yep.
Sorry, that went completely. Why did I sing? What that was, Fran? You're supposed to be professional in these things. What is happening? Oh gosh. So to get back on to what I was meant to be doing, Laurie, thank you so much for coming to speak with me and to give so much more information behind Pahua and the Soulstealer, of your journey as an author as well. And it's just been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a lot of fun.
Oh God, I'm so glad you said that in my head and was like, oh,
no, it was. You're delightful.
Oh, cool. To everyone listening, as I said, all the links for Pahua and the Soulstealer, Forest of Souls, and Broken Web will be in the episode show notes and on the description box on YouTube. Be sure to check out Laurie on all of her social media, which will also be linked as well for any updates that may be coming in future. And yeah, I don't know how to finish things now because I'm kind of like overwhelmed.
You're the first podcast I've done where I've talked about Pahua, like just like specifically talked about Pahua. So,
oh, that's great. I'm glad to be the first, and I hope there'll be more as well in the future to add more advertisement and hype for Pahua's story as well. And yeah, to everyone listening, yes, you're all probably judging me at this point, and you know what, that's completely fair. But hopefully
no judging is allowed.
Will lead to you all checking out Laurie's work. And again, just to finish so I can stop embarrassing myself, thank you so much, and I hope the release of Pahua and the Soulstealer and for the sequel Broken Web for your series do incredibly well, and the feedback that comes from it and the response is everything that you hope it will be.
Thank you.
All right, and to everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. I'm so sorry for how I have ended this. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.